Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Ominous Observatory. Holly Arnold stood on the windswept cliffs of the Isle of Wight, the salty air whipping her hair into a frenzy. The old observatory loomed behind her, its ancient stone walls weathered by centuries of relentless sea winds. Tonight the sky was clear, an ocean of stars twinkling in the vast darkness above. Yet, amidst the familiar constellations, something new and unsettling had appeared. Holly, an astronomer with a fascination for the unknown, had dedicated her life to studying the heavens. She had spent countless nights at the observatory, peering through the telescope at the mysteries of the universe. But tonight, something was different. An inexplicable unease gnawed at her as she prepared to make her observations. Inside the observatory, Holly's colleague, Dr. Adrian Blackwood, was already at the telescope, his brow furrowed in concentration. He glanced up as she entered, his eyes filled with an intensity she had never seen before. "Holly, you need to see this," he said, his voice trembling with excitement and fear. Holly approached the telescope and peered through the lens. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw it, a series of strange, glowing symbols etched across the sky, as if written by some celestial hand. They were unlike any constellation she had ever seen, pulsating with an eerie, otherworldly light. "What is it?" Holly asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian shook his head. "I don't know. They appeared a few nights ago, and they've been growing brighter ever since. I ran the coordinates through every astronomical database I could find, but there is no record of anything like this." Holly stared at the symbols, her mind racing. "Have you tried deciphering them?" "Yes," Adrian replied, pulling out a notebook filled with sketches and calculations. "I've been trying to decode them, but it's like nothing I've ever encountered. It's almost as if they're a message. A message from whom?" Holly asked, though she already knew the answer. "From something beyond our understanding," Adrian said, his voice trembling. "And whatever it is, it's coming." Over the next few nights, Holly and Adrian worked tirelessly to decipher the symbols. They pored over ancient texts, consulted with experts in cryptography and linguistics, and even reached out to historians and occultists. Slowly but surely, the message began to reveal itself. "These symbols," Adrian said one night, his eyes red from lack of sleep, "they are a warning. They are telling us that an entity, an otherworldly being, is approaching, and its arrival will bring about the end of the world." Holly felt a chill run down her spine. "How much time do we have?" Adrian glanced at the sky, where the symbols had grown even brighter and more numerous. "Not long, maybe a few weeks at most." Desperation set in as they realized the enormity of their task. They had to find a way to stop the entity before it arrived. But how could they? Two mere humans hoped for a force beyond their comprehension. One night, as Holly sat alone in the observatory staring at the enigmatic symbols, she had a sudden realization. "What if the symbols aren't just a warning?" she muttered to herself. "What if they're also the key to stopping it?" With renewed determination, Holly and Adrian redoubled their efforts. They analyzed the symbols from every possible angle, looking for patterns, hidden meanings, anything that might give them a clue. And then, one fateful night, they found it. "Holly, look at this," Adrian said, pointing to a sequence of symbols that seemed to pulse with a different rhythm. "These symbols, they are different from the rest. They form a pattern, a kind of incantation." Holly's heart pounded in her chest. "An incantation? You mean like a spell?" "Yes," Adrian said, his voice barely above a whisper. "If we can decipher it, we might be able to use it to stop the entity." The days that followed were a blur of frantic activity. Holly and Adrian worked around the clock, deciphering the incantation piece by piece. They consulted with experts in ancient languages and rituals, piecing together the knowledge they needed to perform the spell. As the deadline approached, the atmosphere on the Isle of Wight grew increasingly tense. Strange weather patterns emerged, with sudden storms and unexplainable phenomena occurring with alarming frequency. The locals grew fearful, sensing that something terrible was on the horizon. Finally, on the night the entity was predicted to arrive, Holly and Adrian were ready. They stood at the edge of the cliff, facing the dark, roiling sea. The symbols in the sky blazed with an intensity that illuminated the night like a second sun. Holding the ancient book that contained the completed incantation, Holly began to chant the words, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. Adrian stood beside her, adding his voice to the incantation. Together, they called upon the forces of the universe, seeking to repel the otherworldly entity. As they chanted, the wind howled round them, and the sea churned with a fury that seemed to echo the rage of the approaching entity. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the very air seemed to crackle with energy. And then, as Holly uttered the final words of the incantation, a blinding light erupted from the symbols in the sky. The light coalesced into a beam that shot toward the horizon, where a dark, ominous shape had begun to emerge from the depths of space. For a moment, it seemed as if the entity would break through, its shadowy form towering over the sea. But then the beam of light struck it, and with a deafening roar, the entity was pushed back. The symbols in the sky fled one last time before vanishing, taking the entity with them. Holly and Adrian stood in stunned silence, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had done it. They had stopped the entity and saved the world. But as the sky returned to its usual, star-studded calm, Holly couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast and filled with mysteries they had yet to uncover. And somewhere out there, other entities might be watching, waiting for their chance to break through. The observatory would remain a beacon of vigilance, a reminder that the unknown was always just beyond the horizon, waiting for those brave enough to seek it out. And Holly Arnold, now more than ever, was determined to be ready for whatever the cosmos might throw at her next. The days following the banishment of the entity were a strange blend of relief and lingering dread. The local community, unaware of the specifics, sensed that the worst had passed but remained wary. Holly and Adrian were lauded as heroes among their peers in the scientific community, but they couldn't shake the feeling that their victory was precarious. Holly resumed her nightly vigils at the observatory, ever watchful for any sign of a new threat. Adrian, meanwhile, dove into the wealth of ancient texts they had acquired during their frantic research. They were determined to understand more about the symbols and the incantation, hoping to be better prepared for any future encounters. One night, as Holly scanned the sky, she noticed something peculiar. A faint, almost imperceptible flicker of light in a distant constellation. It was barely noticeable, but it was there, a persistent anomaly that didn't belong. "Adrian," she called, her voice steady despite the unease that settled in her stomach. "You need to see this." Adrian joined her at the telescope, peering through the lens. He adjusted the focus, his expression growing more concerned by the second. "It's starting again," he muttered, almost to himself. Holly nodded. "But this time, we know what to look for. We know what we're up against." Adrian straightened, his resolve hardening. "We need to gather more information. There must be more clues in these texts, more warnings we haven't deciphered yet." Their days turned into a blur of research and observation. They reached out to other astronomers and scientists, forming a network of vigilant watchers. Together, they monitored the skies, looking for any signs of the ominous phenomena that had preceded the first entity's arrival. Weeks passed, and the flickering light grew more pronounced, spreading to other parts of the sky. Holly and Adrian worked tirelessly, deciphering new symbols and piecing together fragments of forgotten knowledge. They discovered references to an ancient order of guardians who had once protected the world from these otherworldly threats. "We need to find out more about these guardians," Holly said one evening, her eyes red from lack of sleep but burning with determination. "If they existed, there might be records, artifacts, something that can help us." Their search led them to a secluded monastery in the Swiss Alps, rumored to house ancient manuscripts and relics from the time of the Guardians. With little more than a cryptic map and a sense of urgency, Holly and Adrian set off on a journey that took them deep into the mountains. The monastery, hidden away from the world, was a fortress of knowledge. The monks who lived there were the keepers of ancient secrets, bound by vows of silence and dedication. It took time and patience, but eventually Holly and Adrian earned their trust and were granted access to the monastery's vast library. For weeks they delved into the dusty tomes, uncovering the history of the Guardians and their battles against otherworldly entities. They learned of powerful rituals, ancient spells, and mystical artifacts that had been used to protect the world. Among these artifacts was the astral key, a relic said to have the power to seal the rifts between dimensions. "We need to find this astral key," Holly said, her voice filled with a newfound hope. It might be the only way to permanently stop these entities. The monks provided them with a lead, a legend that the astral key was hidden in an ancient temple on a remote island in the Pacific. With little time to spare, Holly and Adrian embarked on another journey, crossing oceans and braving treacherous landscapes in their quest to find the key. The island, shrouded in mist and mystery, was a place out of time. The temple, hidden deep within the jungle, was a crumbling ruin, its walls covered in vines and moss. But within its depths they found the astral key, a beautifully crafted artifact that pulsed with a strange, otherworldly energy. Returning to the Isle of Wight, Holly and Adrian prepared for the impending arrival of the next entity. The sky had grown increasingly turbulent, with strange lights and phenomena becoming more frequent. The flickering anomaly had spread across the heavens, signaling that the entity was drawing near. On the night of the full moon, as the sky blazed with unnatural light, Holly and Adrian stood once more on the cliffs, the astral key in hand. They had deciphered the ritual needed to activate its power, a complex incantation that required both precision and unwavering focus. As they began the ritual, the air around them crackled with energy. The sea below churned, and the ground trembled. The entity's presence was palpable, a dark shadow looming at the edge of reality, straining to break through. Holly and Adrian's voices rose in unison, their words melding with the ancient power of the astral key. The key glowed with a blinding light, and beams of energy shot out, forming a barrier that pushed against the encroaching darkness. For a moment it seemed as if the entity would overwhelm them, its malevolent force pressing harder and harder against the barrier. But Holly and Adrian held firm, their voices unwavering as they chanted the final words of the incantation. With a deafening roar, the entity was forced back, its shadowy form dissolving into the ether. The sky cleared, and the unnatural lights faded, leaving only the serene twinkle of the stars. Holly and Adrian collapsed to the ground, exhausted but triumphant. They had done it. They had stopped the entity once more, and this time, with the power of the astral key, they had sealed the rift between dimensions. As they lay on the cliffs, gazing up at the now peaceful sky, Holly felt a sense of calm settle over her. The battle was far from over. There would always be new threats, new challenges, but for now they had won, and they were ready for whatever the cosmos might throw at them next. In the aftermath, the Isle of Wight returned to its quiet, unassuming existence. But Holly and Adrian knew that the observatory would remain a beacon, a symbol of vigilance and hope. They continued their work, ever watchful, ever ready, knowing that the universe was vast and filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And somewhere, in the infinite expanse of the cosmos, other entities might be watching, biding their time. But Holly Arnold and Adrian Blackwood were prepared. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. And they would do so again, no matter what lay ahead. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.